having me.
All right, the tension has been doused. We've seen the exit, but what would you say is the implication of this exit?
Well, it's a very unfortunate scenario panning out because this is the second time ECOWAS is being affected by such a departure. This perhaps being the most devastating. First was Mauritania in the year 2000 that voluntarily said they were leaving ECOWAS for obvious reasons of nationalism and sovereignty. Today we have the three states that have formed a confederation of Sahel states and have pulled out effectively. Now, having issued passports of their own design and have indicated also currencies that they intend to launch and have taken some other diplomatic and administrative steps, including political steps, to sever their relationship with ECOWAS. This has become one of the greatest challenges this organization is facing. And it has very deep
ratified at the December 15, 2024 summit.
Go ahead, sir.
It has very deep implications for the sub-region because the protocols that came into being, namely protocol on free movement, right of residence, and then movement of goods and services and capital, is now thwarted. Makes it difficult for citizens to travel, though with the concessions being granted on both sides, that citizens of ECOWAS can still use their passports and cross the borders of these Sahel states. It means there will be some implications with time. And then security-wise, you know, one of the reasons why the Sahel state decided to pull out was the apparent neglect of ECOWAS from assisting them to find the jihadists. And yes, ECOWAS managed to bring United Nations to keep peace in the region. But unfortunately, those efforts were not effective enough to make a difference. And so people have misgivings about what has been going on. Now, you see, they were asking the question, for instance, if ECOWAS could easily form a strong standby force to enforce a return to democracy in these countries at very short notice, how come ECOWAS was unable to form such a force to challenge the jihadis all these years past? I think that has been one of the greatest challenges they have thrown up to ECOWAS, which truly you will find it very, very difficult to analyze.
Okay, Ambassador, let me just come in there. You've already talked about how their national passport and identity cards bearing the ECOWAS logo, will be allowed. But how would this foster migration and interaction among the people? You talked about fostering peace and unity among the region, but you also mentioned implication.
Yeah, well, whether we like it or not, even when the ECOWAS passport was fully functional and across 15 member countries, you still had difficulties at the borders. Our officers in uniform have always made it very difficult for passengers, citizens traveling across the sub-region. We had, in ECOWAS itself, you receive complaints almost on daily basis of harassment and extortion and what have you. So it might not change much, but it could add some additional cost or layer of difficulty for citizens, particularly from the non-EAS countries coming in or going out and vice versa. So there are implications for all that is going on. You know, the countries in the sub-region have a symbiotic relationship. Minus the imposition of colonial boundaries on Africa, most of us are actually the same people. There is no difference between a typical Nigerian in the north and a Nigerian up there in Niger. Similarly, at the Shaki border in Nigeria around Ibadan, and somebody living across the border in Benin Republic, there's no difference. So, minus colonial interventions, we were one people. And therefore, even this development still underlies the fact that we remain one, because we cannot move away from this location, we cannot move away from this jurisdiction, no matter what the boundaries are. They are not physical enough to prevent us from moving around. So,
just like Ambassador, it can stop trade. We're seeing the leniency also in the aspect of trade that will be in accordance with the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme. But what would you say will be the import of this on the region?
Well, I can assure you trade will continue as usual. all these efforts are going to come to really nothing much until maybe after some years from now, because even in the experience of Mauritania, when Mauritania left in a hurry, some years later, Mauritania suddenly discovered that they were not able to sell fish to Nigeria because they exited the ETLS. And so it became a problem. Mauritania had to even look for another third country to be able to bring fish into Nigeria in particular because of the huge size of the market. This is what is going to happen. The AES are going to realize that they still need Nigeria, for instance, for this trade to continue. And Nigeria also needs them because Niger, for instance, has been serving as a buffer for security against the jihadis coming in from Libya, Algeria, Iraq, and the rest of them. So both sides have benefits and both sides have commitment that we need to look at. And then, just like the president of the commission has said, you know, the departure is not going to be easy because there are plenty of things that need to be negotiated. There are plenty of staff of the commission, for instance, that are scattered in these countries with agencies that ECOWAS has established, functioning, buildings, etc., etc. All this will require very complex negotiation that will take time to work out.
And talking about negotiations, of course, you're aware that the ECOWAS Commission has set up a structure to facilitate discussions regarding this issue. But what would you say will be the expectation from this engagement?
Well, it's a very good question. And from the experience of even Mauritania, let me go back because this is something very similar. It will take some years to negotiate because ECOWAS, for instance, financed the establishment of headquarters of agencies in these member countries. If I take one example, the headquarters of the West African Health Organization, WHO, AO, is in Burkina Faso, in the second largest town of Bobo Dioulasso. Now, the structures there required ECOWAS to have committed so much money to build. The sports center in Niger, the small arms control center in Mali, so many of them scattered across the sub-region. All these are investments that ECOWAS has done. Programs that were financed from loans and grants that ECOWAS managed to get from other international organizations have been sunk in these member countries. Now, since they pull out, it means there will be need for serious negotiations and it will take a long time.
All right, Ambassador Haruna Warkani, thank you so much for your time on the news. We do hope that peace is sustained within the region. All right.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's take a break. We're back. Stay tuned.